Starting a new Etsy store and not making any sales has got to be one of the most frustrating things when it comes to trying to make money on that platform, especially when you've spent hours of your time creating products and then uploaded them to Etsy, only to get a couple of views but no clicks or any orders. And I can speak from personal experience, having faced it a few times with some of my Etsy stores, so I know how daunting and intimidating this period can be, because it's usually during this time that will either make or break people who are starting a new Etsy store. So if you are someone who is just starting out but can't seem to find a way of breaking through and getting your first few sales, then you really need to apply some of these points that I'm about to give you in this video. Because even when you think you've done everything right and can't think of any other reasons as to why you're not making sales, there's always something bringing your store down and preventing it from gaining traction. Because for the vast majority of people, they truly believe that nothing else can be done, and then they go and give up on Etsy within just a few days or even weeks. And I hope you're not going to be one of those people, but instead become one of the few that actually make it. So let's go ahead and run through some of the reasons as to why you're not making any sales on Etsy. So first up, if your listing isn't getting any sales, then the key indicator will be whether you're getting any views or clicks. Because without those, how can you expect a customer to purchase from you if they're not even seeing your listing in the search results? And this issue is very common for people just starting out on Etsy, because they don't quite understand how their listings actually interact with the Etsy algorithm and what areas they need to target to have the algorithm work in their favor. Now, try to think of the Etsy algorithm as a robot with no eyes that can't actually see what you're selling, but instead can only use your title and tags to figure out whether it should be shown to customers who are searching for certain search terms. So when a customer searches for something that matches a certain keyword within your title or tags, it then runs this process and then pulls your listing to be shown in the search results. And after doing this again and again, the robot then begins to track how your listing is performing by gathering all the data and then analyzing it to determine whether your listing is actually being engaged with from this certain search term. So if your listing includes very broad or non-relevant keywords within your title or tags, then the robot will show your listing to customers searching for these terms, and they will then act as the eyes for the robot to confirm whether your listing was a good choice to be shown by whether or not they engage with it. And from running this process over 100 or if not thousands of times across many different search terms, try to imagine that the algorithm is giving your listing a quality score out of 100. And of course, the higher the score, the higher your listing will rank, which will only further promote more customer engagement, which will then further push up your score. And this is where you want your listing to be, because it then becomes an upward spiral. But on the other hand, if your listing receives a lower score, then the lower in the search results your listing will be, making it harder and harder for it to be discovered, then putting it into a downward spiral, essentially making it a dead listing. So in order to have the Etsy algorithm robot work in your favor, you need to be very niche and specific with the keywords that you use in your title and tags. And the use of a keyword research tool can definitely help give you the basic words to use, but I would actually highly recommend testing out the search terms on Etsy that are most relevant to what you're selling. And by doing this, you would be putting yourself in the shoes of the customers who would be searching for what you're selling. And you can begin to pick up on word combinations and keywords that perfectly match what they would be searching for. Now that we've figured out how to boost our listing in the Etsy search results, the next one is going to be one of the most crucial parts of selling anything online, which is the way it's presented. Because unlike shopping in stores, customers can't physically hold or see what they're buying. So the only gauge they have is through the way you present them in your images. And if your images don't accurately show your product and make it clear to a customer within just 1 to 2 seconds of them glancing at it, then you've already lost them, as they're just going to continue scrolling on. And this step is where most people trip up and fall short, because in the rush to set up an Etsy store and begin uploading products as quickly as possible, they often neglect this process and use the most basic and generic product images they possibly can find. And some of the laziest ways I see is people using the mockups generated from their print-on-demand suppliers' websites like Printful and Printify, which only makes your images look identical to everyone else doing the same thing, and it doesn't exactly present a professional or branded look. And I also see a similar thing with people selling digital products, where they go ahead and take their design or product and then put it onto a square image with a white background and then just leave it at about that. Because although these methods may be working for some of the few doing it, if you're a new seller to Etsy, you want to come out of the gates looking like you're the best choice for any customer. And this may sound weird, but try to think of it this way. If you're a car dealership looking for a salesman to sell your cars, are you going to pick someone who is charismatic, confident, and professional, or are you going to pick someone who is boring and unprofessional? Because when it comes down to your product images, you almost need to think of them as the ones doing your sales pitch. And this is because they're the only persuasive communication tool standing between you and your customer. So if you aren't spending any more time trying to make them more charismatic and confident, is it really any surprise that you're not getting any sales, or at the very least getting any more views or clicks? So I would highly recommend just dedicating a few hours or even a whole day if you can, just to figuring out the images and the mockups you're going to use. Because once you've made sure that your product images look as professional as they possibly can be, this will set a good foundation for the remaining listings that will go up on your store in future. And if you are selling products like t-shirts, mugs, and posters, there's a link down in the description that will take you to my website where you can access a mockup template to use inside of Canva. That way you can go ahead and create your own professional product images. Now, this next one is very simple to change, which is free shipping and pricing strategy. And if this has not already been applied to your store, then it may be one of the reasons as to why your listings aren't being pushed. And this is because Etsy has openly stated that when a store offers free shipping on their listings, they immediately receive priority placement in search results. So if you haven't already, I would definitely make sure that you're offering free shipping on all of your listings. And this ties in nicely and leads me to the next point, which is pricing strategy. Because if you're going to be offering free shipping, you don't want your profits to be eaten away by the cost of shipping your products. So this is where you will need to create a pricing system that will include your shipping costs into the pricing figure for your product. And in some sense, all you're doing is disguising the shipping fee into your product price, making the customer feel as if they are in fact getting free shipping, when in reality they are still paying for it and you're not losing out at all. So by taking just a few moments to make these changes, you can start to begin seeing far more views and engagements with your listings. And on a side note, for those of you who happen to be selling a product that comes in different variations, I would highly recommend that you use a pricing ladder strategy, which is also used by many large companies like Apple. And let me give you a quick example of how it works. So when you go to buy a new iPhone, you always have the base option, and let's use the iPhone 15 as an example. So that will be the base option, and then you have the 15 Plus, the 15 Pro, and then the 15 Pro Max. And what Apple have done is set the price of the iPhone 15 at a point where most people would consider it to be attainable and affordable. But then they make you consider the next model up, which is bigger and only an extra $100. And what's an extra $100 when you're already paying $800 for the base option, right? Then they continue this same pattern as you progress up until you get to the point where you're buying the most expensive model. Because after all, it somehow seems right, as it's only an extra $400 on top of your $800, right? And by using this same strategy and applying it to your variation pricing, this can help you take a customer who was going to buy your cheapest option and then convert them into a higher paying customer where they're now buying the largest size or most expensive option. And lastly, I want to touch on how the lack of consistent style or branding within your store can negatively impact its perception to customers and may well be one of the reasons why they're not taking it seriously. Because again, similar to your product images, if a customer can't see or make out who they're actually purchasing from, this could then deter them from shopping from you and instead taking their money and spending it elsewhere with somebody else. And there's generally one main reason for this, which is listing consistency. Because if I personally come across a store that I'm looking to purchase from, but their store is filled with loads of different product types, which all look of a completely different style as if they all came from different stores, then I would be slightly put off by this. And some may disagree and not care at all, but to me it tells me a lot about how they run their store. Because if they're happy to let their products and storefront look this unorganized and unprofessional, I can only imagine and assume this is how they run their business behind the scenes. So by simply taking a moment to take a step back and view your store from the eyes of a customer, you may then begin to notice some flaws that you once wouldn't have noticed. And even the most simplest of things can help, like arranging your listings into categories or arranging your listings on your storefront to show your best listings first. And make sure to take advantage of having a professional looking banner, because for most customers, this will be the first thing they see, which represents you and your store before they see anything else. Because in the long run, if you want your store to succeed and you want to make it within the top 10% of sellers, then not only are you going to need to replicate the same strategies they use, but you're also going to have to go above and beyond them. So by setting up your store and laying a good foundation from the get-go, you're giving yourself the best shot at making sales as quickly as possible and getting that snowball effect well on its way. But anyway, that is going to wrap up this video. I really hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, then please make sure to drop this video a like and subscribe if you haven't already. I will see you guys in the next one. Take care. Bye for now. Peace.